Afternoon. How are we doing?
Good.
All right. Good. Good. First of all, I'd just like to open this up by, passing along our thoughts and prayers for, UCF O-line coach Mel Cart. He's a person that's, well respected around here, as he should be, and I've dealt with those type of situations during the season on staff before. They're very, very difficult for everyone, players and coaching staff. So, our thoughts to Coach Frost, his staff, and the team there. I know they're going through a lot. On our end of it, excited to get started here on UCF. This is a kind of an interesting game. They played a couple games. They've had a bye week. They have a lot of transfers, which if anybody can relate to that, we can. Their coaches are all from kind of different spots. The defensive coordinator, Grinch, and then Alomar from Rice, and then Coach Frost from Nebraska to UCF when he was there before. So just kind of putting all those things together. I'm sure that they've had a little bit of time to, with the bye week, work on some things they need to work on, fine-tune some things, and probably, come up with some things that'll give us problems like they usually do. So, we got to work that out for us. It's a, good football team. They have a lot of talented players. They're very well coached. Scott, of course, I go back, I can't believe it's been, over 30 years. Over 30 years since we were together at the Jets. He was drafted, he played quarterback at Nebraska, and we drafted him as a defensive back, so, he's a safety for me, and really smart guy, tough, big kid for a quarterback. He was a big safety too, and, really had a great aptitude for the game, both offensively, defensively, and played in the kicking game as well, so there's a lot of experience as a player, and certainly as a coach, both at UCF and Nebraska. So ton of respect for Scott and the program that he runs and the people they have down there. And again, a lot of skilled players. They got some probably some outstanding players that'll be have a great future. Montgomery, the run back, so terrific player, and on the defensive line, I got three guys that are really a problem, and so it'll be some tough matchups for us. So we'll start getting ready for them, and try to have a good week, and be ready to go. But UCF's a good, talented team, and they're well coached. So and they've been very explosive in the kicking game, both in the return game, blocking kicks, blocking punts, almost blocking them, blocking field goals, returning punts, returning kickoffs. They've been, productive in all phases of the game.
Start your program on the right, Coach.
Hey Bill, Noah Weiss, Tar Heel 24/7. Just first, I know you touched on it a little bit, but just Scott Frost, and what do you remember about him as a player specifically? I know you touched on it a little, and then also, just how cool is it to be able to coach against someone that you coached there in New York?
Right. Well, I've coached against a few people that I've had before. So, but yeah, Scott. Again, when we drafted Scott, I think it was in the third round. Again, he was a college quarterback and made the conversion to safety. So he had a lot to learn, obviously, but he picked it up very quickly. He also played in the kicking game, and so picked that up. And he had a very good feel for defensively, what the offense did. What the quarterback was looking at, and kind of what the quarterback read and things like that. So for those players that have flipped from one side of the ball to the other, having that experience, especially as defensive back, having played quarterback, is a big advantage. So, but Scott was a hardworking guy. He was smart, and again was very versatile as a football player to be able to play in all three phases of the game. You don't see that very often these days, where guys can legitimately line up in all three positions.
And then really quick, we talked to Jamie Collins last week just about his coaching philosophy and how he got to this point. What made you confident that he would be a really good fit here to coach the linebackers, and what have you seen from him so far since getting here, just as a coach and developing?
Yeah, I think the transition from playing to coaching is always an interesting one, and Jamie's done a nice job both in the recruiting side of it and in the Coaching side of it's a little bit of a different lifestyle, but he's adapted to it, well, and he brings that, having not been a player, Jamie brings the playing perspective that, that I don't have, or Natrone Means brings that too, the playing perspective, NFL playing perspective, but, obviously college as well, but, that I don't have that kind of experience in being in a Division I program as a, big time player. So I think those people really add a lot of balance to our staff from their perspective of, what it takes, how hard it is, and balancing all the things that come with being a D1 student athlete. It's not easy, and they've done it, and they've done it very well. So, it's good to have him, and like I said, him and Natrone, people like that on the staff.
Next to him on the right, Coach.
Hey Bill, Michael Cart, WCHL, ChapelGrow.com. We're going to talk to two players later today, and Daniel and Mel Cart, who are both from smaller schools or lower divisions. Do you like rostering and signing players who come from, smaller programs, smaller leagues? It seems like sometimes those guys can have extra grit or an extra chip on their shoulder to prove something.
Yeah, well, I'm just partial to good football players. It doesn't really matter where they come from. If they can help our team and our program, and they're good teammates, then, definitely like having them. And both those guys have done a good job on that. One of my former coaches, Coach Daniel, and so, that was, very insightful. But he's improved a lot since he's been here. He's a big, strong guy, but his footwork, his technique, his conditioning, he's put a lot into it, and you can see really the improvement that he's made. Really in the last few weeks, it's kind of jumped out, and he's playing good football for us. And Mel Cart, the same thing. He's worked so hard since he's been here. He's improved. Feels like every single day, going all the way back to February, March when we started spring ball. He just keeps getting better and better at little things, and developing little techniques that he uses at the right time. He's very instinctive. Does a good job of doing the right thing at the right time. And so yeah, those two guys have been great. They've worked really hard and improved a lot.
Front row on the left.
Hey, Coach. Grant Sasser, Turtles on my side. When you look at your defense now compared to the start of the season, how confident are you in what they're doing and the progress that they've made?
Well, we've definitely made a lot of progress. Our fundamentals are better. We're more consistent in our run fits and our coverage adjustments and things like that. Are we there yet? No, of course not. We have a long way to go, but so definitely making progress. And I think as those players play together and they have more confidence in each other, and our communication improves with different adjustments and challenges the offense gives us, they don't want to make it easy for us. So, we have to handle the hard things, but we're doing better at that. It's getting better, and, we'll see. I mean, look, Coach Frost is, I think they led the nation in scoring when he was at UCF the last time. They threw up 60, however many points it was last week. They're very explosive, so we'll see how we're coming along this week, but definitely getting better, and not just the linebackers, but I'd say the entire unit, the defensive backs, the defensive line, just the communication between those different levels of the defense. Sometimes communicating on the same level is that's part of it, because we're all sort of doing the same thing, but then communicating with the guys in front of us or behind us is sometimes a little more challenging, but they're all important. So we stress all of it, and we're definitely getting better.
Right next to him.
Yeah, Bill, Jeremiah Holloway with Inside Carolina. You touched on it a little bit after the game, but one thing you were talking about when it came to the passing game in Gio, you were saying he was getting more comfortable and things like that with the offense. One thing you also mentioned was timing. How would you kind of work with him, you and the staff kind of work with him when it comes to the, timing element from the offensive standpoint? How much of that just comes from just the more game time you get? Obviously he's only played 3 games. How much do you kind of, help him in that regard?
Yeah, well, Jeremiah, the timing really comes from 2 people, the person throwing and the person catching, but then also the distribution of the players around them, so there's good spacing, and that one route doesn't get too. Sometimes you need it to complement the other route. Sometimes you need it to complement it by creating space so that the players can work into open areas. But if a receiver is a half second quicker or a half second slower, then that throws off the quarterback timing. Sometimes the quarterback has to, move around a player to throw the ball into an open lane or avoid a rush or whatever. And so those things, just those little things can be the difference between, a big play and an interception, honestly. So there's no, I would say, magic wand to it. It's just doing it over and over again and having that confidence where you can, as a quarterback, let the ball go just a split second early because the receiver is going to, you can anticipate that he's going to be in that spot. And that split second is, as I said, huge, especially in tight coverage situations like third down, red area, and tight man-to-man coverage. So there's no way to, like I said, to wave a wand on that. That just comes from repetitions and doing it over again against, different looks and getting that confidence that, and the same thing for the receiver, that I know is that, right, when I make this step, that ball's going to be on me and I got to get my head around and look for it. And so you just build that through repetition. So again, we're not there yet, but I feel like we're getting closer each week, and things come up in the game or things come up in practice that we correct or talk about and say, okay, here's how we're going to do this, and then we do it, and then we gain confidence in it, and then hopefully we'll be able to do it again in game situations.
Super quick follow-up, if I can. You mentioned the confidence element. To what degree can you kind of see that in a quarterback? Just confidence when it comes to when he throws or just in the pocket. Like, how much as a coach can you just see that in the quarterback?
Well, when the ball comes out on time, there's confidence. And so I think a couple of the Gio's throws, like to Jake, came out real quick. They got there, just in time, and Jake was able to, squirt forward for a first down a couple times. Things like that, where if you just hesitate another split second, maybe he makes a catch, maybe he doesn't get that extra 2 yards for the first down, things like that. So those are, there's a difference between anticipating the receiver being open and then seeing him open and then throwing the ball. A lot of times it's too late. And if you can anticipate that, the receiver creating separation and getting open, then you hit him. If you wait till he gets open, a lot of times that window closes by the time you get him the ball.
Right next to him, coach.
Rob Baxley, Fayetteville Observer. Bill, how have you seen Mel Cart evolve as a leader? He was one of the first guys y'all got out of the portal in December. As that work and practice has led to production on the field, how have you seen that kind of grow and evolve?
Yeah, Mel Cart's a little bit of a quieter guy, but very well respected because of his work ethic, his toughness, and his consistency. He just shows up every day, gives you his best. You can count on him. His teammates have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and he's had great production. So, his leadership really comes from his day in and day out performance and toughness and reliability, and really that's what I think we all want in our teammates. I think a player wants that from a coach. I think a coach wants that from a player. Players want it from each other. That's what gives you a good team, is when you can count on your coaches, your teammates, the other people you're working with to give you their best every day and show up and be ready to go. And he certainly does that. Whether it's in the weight room, in the meeting room, out on the field, he's always ready to go, works hard, and shows steady improvement.
Second from middle.
Brian Murphy, WRAL. You started with Coach Clark down there at UCF, and I wonder, especially in college football, it's a 24-hour day job, right? 12 months a year. How do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of your coaches? How do you make sure that they're not, stressed to the point of being unproductive while trying to manage everything that you guys are trying to manage?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brian. That's. Yeah, at some point you just have to realize there's a point of diminishing returns, and a lot of times a good night's sleep's better than a few more hours of less productive time. It's a long season, and you got to pace yourself through the season. I think that's important, that you don't get worn out in training camp, and then aren't able to sustain it during the season. But there's a pace and there's an experience level to it, and just try to. I would say get off to a good start. Be in good condition when you start, not get worn down too early. Then it's kind of hard to to fill the tank back up. But it's kind of a little bit of a personal thing. Our training staff, Luke and Mario, Dr. Sioka, they do a great job of, if somebody's got a cold or somebody's gone down a little something, they get on it right away, do a good job of, helping us work through some of those little, I don't say setbacks, more on the coaching end. Players have they deal with that too, but, a lot of times more physical injuries, usually the coaches deal with get a cold, get a sore throat, the flu, whatever it is, sometimes those can bog you down. They do a good job of, we've already had a couple of them this year that they've gotten over the hump pretty quickly on it, so we have good staff.
Is there something you do to try to decompress at times?
Well, yeah, again, at some point you just kind of gotta meditate a little bit or just, relax and try to, regroup and then go hard. But yeah, at some point you gotta get a good night's rest and just clear your head and then be ready to start fresh. Every week's a new challenge, and it's everything all the time, effort we put into Richmond right now is gone. I don't say it's meaningless, but close to it. Everything's about UCF and what they do and how well they do it and how we can compete against it. And then there'll be a point when the page will turn there and, you're into another chapter. So it's, you're on a treadmill. Right? You're on a treadmill and it doesn't really slow down. If anything, it kind of speeds up a little bit, but you can't get off. You get off, and then it's really hard to get back on.
Two more here, Shelby. Andrew.
Shelby Swanson with the News Observer. Just kind of going back to another question I had about Gio. Tom Brady appreciated and maybe spoke about the importance of just quarterbacks developing kind of that pre-snap sense, seeing what defense is showing, that sort of thing, and how I felt sometimes young quarterbacks can be overcoached or kind of like rigid in that area. I'm curious from your experience, what is your process and how do you approach helping a young quarterback like Gio or like you did with Tom, kind of developing that awareness so they can be able to make those decisions and reads on their own?
There's so many things that a quarterback does that there are a lot of different categories of things and they're all important. I think you try to find the ones that you feel like are the most important for that particular player. There are probably some things he's really good at. There's probably other things that he's okay at. And there's probably other things he needs to improve on. And so, you try to help the player with whatever it is that you feel like will help him the most, or maybe that, are the most important things for him. It's not the same with every player. We all learn differently. We all process differently, and coaching a quarterback is very much a one-on-one proposition. Yeah, you may have multiple quarterbacks, but and they may learn differently as well or have different strengths and weaknesses, so you have to adapt it. It's very individualized. So as I said, each guy is different. With Tom was a player who wasn't going to run a lot, so that wasn't part of it. For him, it was understanding coverages, understanding the weak spots of the defense, and playing situational football. With other quarterbacks, especially with a lot of the quarterbacks in college, there's another element. It's not just dropping back and throwing into coverage, but there are other, option plays where they can run or throw, or run or throw, depending on, the type of plays and so forth. So I don't think you want to overload them. I think you want to find something that they can tangibly grab a hold of and say, okay, yeah, that makes sense, that helps me. But as you coach players, and my experience has been with all players, sometimes the way you see it isn't the way they see it, and if they don't see it that way, then you need to find some other way to teach it. That just doesn't work for them. I've had plenty of great players tell me, hey coach, that's a great key, but I can't really see that on the field, so let's find something else. All right, start looking for something else.
I guess a quick follow-up from me, just how do you approach that relationship, kind of that coach-quarterback teaching relationship with Gio so far?
Well, I think it's important for the coach and the quarterback, starting quarterback, to be on the same page in terms of just generally how we're going to play the game, and then specifically how we're going to handle certain situations. comes down to a critical situation, I want to make sure that, that what I want for the team is the same thing the quarterback is trying to do, and that we're both on the same page. We don't come off after a play and say, oh, I thought we were trying to do this, and now we were trying to do that type of thing. You know, in a critical situation, you just don't want that. So we've gone over a lot of situational football to try to cover those things. Now, I'm not saying we're 1,000%, but like that's the idea, is to get the situations handled right, and then you know, the fundamentals of playing the position that are most important to me, those are the ones I've tried to emphasize with him. You know, things like ball security and you know, communication in the huddle and things like that. Not groundbreaking news, but the things that are most important on the quarterback's checklist. If you do those things wrong, then chances of being a good player are pretty low. You know, you have to do certain fundamental things right, and then execute the play.
Last one, Andrew.
Andrew Jones, talking on 24/7. We get Mel Cart in a few minutes. It's got an interesting story starting at the Baker shop in Delaware to here. There are stories in football. You've coached guys that have had awkward, or not awkward, but different courses to get to where they were. And one of the common threads is a passion and a love for the game. And his coach at Delaware said that he had a passion and an absolute love of the game that's going to elevate over guys that have comparable, even better specs. Have you seen that from him since he got here? That love of the game and passion?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I said earlier, really hard worker every day, you know, shows up every day ready to go, has things he wants to accomplish, or we identify things that we're going to get accomplished today, and he does those, and then builds on them. You know, sometimes you feel like, you know, you're repaving the road over and over again. You know, we covered this, and 2 days later you go back and cover it again, and 2 days later you go back and cover it again. It's like, you know, when can we move on? But with him, it's been like just continuous progress. You know, he gets things, and then there's things that happen that he needs to work on, and then he works on those, and we move on to something else. So, you know, at the position he plays, defensive end, there are a lot of things that can happen, particularly at the end of the line of scrimmage, you know, with run force and pass rush and scrambling quarterbacks and RPO plays and counters and pullers and crack blocks and everything. I mean, it's a lot of possibilities and things you have to work out. It depends on what coverage you're in, or what your assignment is, how you would play each of those. So it takes a lot of work, and you know, he's really done a good job of that. I mean, for somebody who's only been here, you know, less than a year, you know, he's made a tremendous improvement.
As a quick follow-up to that, how do you gauge passion and love of the game? Because a lot of guys they're built like they should, or like they should be great football players. They don't have the love of the game. It doesn't take them to that next level. How do you gauge that when you're either scouting a guy for the NFL, or now you're looking at him to come here? Yeah,
it's a day after day consistency. You know, if you really love it, doesn't feel like work, you know, you want to come, you want to do it, you know, you want to be engaged in it, just like, you know, hobbies and other things like that we all have. If you really love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. You want to put a lot into it. It feels like work, and it feels like, well, if I can find something else to do, I'll do that, so I don't have to, then this probably is not the right place for them, because, you know, football is important, and we put a lot into it, and their teammates put a lot into it, and so for somebody who doesn't do that, then it's, you know, kind of disappointing. And probably somebody else is going to come along that's going to want to invest more in it and commit to it more. So how do you gauge that? It's a very unscientific process. Yeah, you do the best you can, and sometimes you talk to people who have interacted with those players, student athletes, whatever they were, and what their gauge of it is and what your gauge of it is maybe not be the same thing either. You know, so I've definitely talked to coaches that have told me that, you know, this player's, you know, a really hardworking player, and he's, you know, you can't wear him out, and all he cares about is football and all that, and in a different program, that wasn't the case at all. So I don't think I was being misled. I just think it was a different situation that it was, for whatever reason, just wasn't the same for that player. So you do the best you can, but ultimately, like I said, it's a very unscientific process.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. Thank you.